My parents instilled confidence in me from a very, very young age. So some of us have it, that we've been helped to develop, but it's a learned skill and it definitely takes practice. You have to know your audience. What is it that they're interested in learning from you about the topic? Do your homework before you even step up in front of them so that they're automatically going to be interested because you're focusing. Like for me, when I present to smaller groups or an individual practice, I send a pre-presentation survey so that I can formulate my presentation to what their needs are. What I encourage to get people to start doing is an all-team study club, not just a hygiene study club, but the hygienists, the assistants, and the office managers. Because when they learn together about the same topic, they're more likely to bring it back to the practice and implement it instead of one person going and coming back and saying, hey, this is what I learned. What do you think? You've got security in numbers.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tale of Two Hygienists podcast, episode number 387. My name is Andrew Johnston, and thank you so much for being with me today. In this episode, we have on returning guest Lisa Copeland, and she is an absolute delight to speak with. I feel like when people meet me sometimes for the first time, they're not exactly the most excited with my expressionless face, but that is not the case with Lisa. She just lights up when she talks about dentistry, and the time just flew by on this episode. We talked a little bit about an insecurity that I think most hygienists do have, and that is public speaking, or maybe even, in your offices, you have group time or morning huddles, and you have to report or say something about it. So we talked about that on this episode. And then we pivoted to study clubs. I really would love to join a local club. So if anyone in the North Tampa / Lutz area is listening and has a club or wants to start a club, shoot me an email, andrew@atale2hygienist.com, so I can participate, because I would love to go to one. Also in this episode, I believe Lisa mentioned that her website for the retreat is ceinthemountains.com. Actually, I do believe it's ceinthemountains.org. You can find the link in the show notes if you're interested in attending. I'll be sure to link it back there, but I do believe it is .org, not .com. And then for next week, boy, howdy, the hits just keep coming here at ATOF as we bring back Katrice Opichka to talk about updates on vaping. She takes the conversation in a really different direction, because I think that I don't think we're all tired about vaping yet, but I feel like it's a very popular hot topic over the last 4 to 5 years. But her delivery is so unique and different. In fact, if you wanted to go back and listen to her last episode that she did with us on HPV last year, make sure you go look for that. She's just a normal person, a normal friend who wants to chat about something that she's really excited about, really knowledgeable about. But as she mentions in the episode, that she's not the most prim and proper of a speaker. And I love that about her. She's just so real. So be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on that episode. In other news, don't forget to sign up for our newsletter. All you have to do is head over to our website. There's going to be a pop-up that happens. It'll urge you to sign up. The newsletter normally goes out twice a month, sometimes 3 or 4 times if we have something special that we want to let you know about. And it's around the 15th and the 30th. The first one around the 15th is going to focus on newsworthy topics for you that you might be able to use in conversations with your patients. This month, we talked about Alex Rodriguez's gum disease and his partnership with Aura Pharma. We talked about how Netflix's new policy might impact dental offices. We talked about robots making crowns, a new podcast recommendation that I think everyone might be interested in, and news on Texas approving a bill that's going to allow dental hygienists to deliver local anesthesia in that state. We keep the blurb short, and then there's a link if you want to read more about it, just so that we don't take up too much of your time. The newsletter at the end of the month is a recap talking about all of the episodes we had that month in case you aren't a subscriber, which I obviously recommend that you become a subscriber. But if you're not, you can see a snapshot of all the guests and all the topics that we had that month, and then you can go back and pick which ones you want to listen to. That's all from me for this week. Thank you so much for listening, and enjoy this episode with Lisa Copeland.
A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome, everybody, into the interview portion of the podcast. Very excited to have Lisa coming back to the show. One of the things that we're going to talk about, and I alluded to this in the intro, it is confidence. We're going to talk a little bit about, study clubs. It's is that a thing of the past? And so the topics are things that are just hitting me personally right now, Lisa. And I'm just so thankful that you decided to come back on the show.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm so happy to be back. We had a great time last time. I'm
We
looking forward to the
did.
same.
We did. And we'll link to that in the show notes, everybody. If you want to take a look or take a listen to the last one that we did, we'll link to it in the show notes and you guys can go listen to it again. It's, yeah, if we don't have the right link to it, you're gonna have to scroll and scroll and scroll. Apologize about that. But Lisa, what have you been up to since last time we chatted? That was at ADHA in Phoenix, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was in 2019.
Wasn't 19, was it? I thought it
think
was
so.
post-pandemic. It doesn't matter. It's been too long, that's for sure. What have you been up to since then?
So I'm doing a lot of team coaching, communication coaching. I wrote a book. I just published it last November. So excited about that. It's called Iron Out Your Communications for Teams and Patient Loyalty and Engagement. And I am doing more presentation coaching as well, delivery and development coaching, which I really love that aspect of my business. And that has kind of expanded and taken off a little bit. So still doing presentations at associations and study clubs and one-on-one team communication coaching as well with practices.
Oh, I love that because that's going to dovetail right into communication, but also confidence. I feel like anymore as you get, coaches coming into your offices, or even if you're working for a DSO, having team meetings, morning huddles, they also ask a lot of us clinicians to present on certain things. I feel like there's going to be a need for people to just kind of step outside their comfort zone a little bit more and maybe have a little bit more confidence. I just think that as a people, we aren't as confident as we need to be. Is that what you're saying also?
Absolutely. It is definitely, you nailed it. It's a confidence aspect, and confidence is a learned skill. I know with me, my parents instilled confidence in me from a very, very young age. So some of us have it, that we've been helped to develop, but it's a learned skill and it definitely takes practice. I think the best thing that you can do in order to help yourself build confidence is to be really strategic in your planning and your preparation of whatever it is that you're going to be doing. So if you are, let's say you're running a study club and you're the person who is literally running the meetings, the way that you present yourself and the way that you introduce the speakers and the audience, it's super important for you to have confidence and also very good communication skills. So I feel like it's a skill that nobody gets trained in very often, but almost all of us should have it.
Well, it seems like some people have it and some people don't. You're saying that it's a learned kind of skill, but
right.
Gosh, it just seems like, sixth grade DARE program when, Jack got up and had to give the speech and he was so good. And then, Andrew over here has to try and give his little paragraph and, I'm, sweating bullets and my legs are shaking. And I know Jack hasn't had much experience, speaking in public. Like, what are some of the reasons? Like, what happens that some people just feel like a little bit more stuck, I guess, with confidence than others?
A couple things. It's a mindset, right? If you talk yourself into being really scared to speak in public, you're going to have that fear when you walk up on stage and it's going to show through. But one of the ways to counter that is to really prepare what you're going to say in advance. Getting up there and just winging it doesn't work for most people. I don't know any professional speakers who just get on stage and wing it. There's a formula. Sure. And, you could have the simplest 5-minute speech or 2-minute speech, but you should have in your mind, okay, I'm going to cover an introduction and a conclusion. Those are your two most important parts of speaking. So your introduction is your second most important, and your conclusion is your very most important aspect, because you want to leave people feeling good and remembering what you said. And so the content in the middle, you want to have a plan. You want to know what bullet points you're going to discuss, right? So it's a simple structure, but having that and just practicing it, or I like the word rehearsing better than practicing, because when you're rehearsing, you're actually doing exactly how you're going to do it. When you practice, like, I'm not a big fan of telling people to practice in the mirror, because you start being very critical of yourself very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Especially this guy right here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand that very, very well. Well, like I sent we'll just call him a friend, is my brother. He's not going to love that I said this on the air, but I sent him, there was an SNL skit a long time ago, Stuart Smalley. I don't know if you know that one, but he's just like, it's basically the cheesiest kind of like life coach where like he always sits with someone who doesn't have enough confidence. And he's just like, gosh, darn it, people like me. The silliest little, and I'll link to that in the show notes as well.
Send me the link. I want to see it.
You are gonna die. But it was so funny. But as you know, it's essentially like he gets up and tells himself how much he loves himself, and it's funny. It's hilarious. Let me ask you this though. So doctors always seem to exude confidence. Is this something that they're taught in school? Is this something they're born with it, or maybe it's Maybelline? Like what is happening there?
I think it's a misperception.
Okay.
Some dentists really have good communication skills and they do exude confidence. But, there's other people on the team that are much better at their communication skills and much better at case presentation than the dentist thinks they are. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that to, slam on the dentist. It's more just, you want to focus on bidirectional leadership. Focus the task on the person who has the best skill for it. Mm-hmm. And so I'll give you an example. One of my dentists that I used to work for, he was such a good dentist. It was in prosthetic implantology. He was an amazing dentist. He was a great communicator, but he was not good at case presentation. He didn't like talking about money to the patients. Yeah. So we had to remove him from that skill and have the office manager who was trained in doing case presentations take over. She was fabulous. We closed so much more if he just didn't start talking about numbers. And so you got to figure out what your strengths are. What are your team's superpowers, and delegate those skills, because chances are that person likes doing that skill as well. And that's going to empower them and engage them and make them more loyal to the practice as well.
So in that particular instance, when you're trying to find like the strengths of individual team members or things like that, how do you know? I would say, especially if you're a terrible leader, you're not going to be able to identify the strengths of each individual. So what do you do to go in and to identify the strengths of everybody? So
I love using strength finders. I've done them all, and I found that one the best one for me. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm not certified in doing that with teams, but for me, that was the one that seemed to really resonate. But you are going to have somebody on your team that is probably really good at identifying people's strengths. And so
they've been working together for a while, right? So they should also kind of know each other a little bit.
Right. You have to ask, what do you, and what you think is your strength may not be what other people think are your strengths. So a lot of times an activity I'll do within a team is have people write down what their top 3 strengths are, and then write what you feel each person on your team's top 3 strengths are. And then you compare those lists, and sometimes they don't overlap, but most of the time you're going to have at least one skill that's going to connect or resonate. And so that's your go-to person for delivering the case presentations. This is your go-to person for whitening and talking about whitening and learning about whitening and educating us about whitening, right? That was me. I was always the whitening and the implant communication specialist, because those were my 2 passions.
Well, even that title sounds fancy. Implant communication specialist. Good job. Wow. We've done those several times in our offices as well. Like, okay, like identify your top 3 strengths, and then, have everyone else all kind of identify what they think that your strengths are. And it's interesting that I think differently about myself that just about everyone thinks about me.
Exactly.
That is, it's kind of frustrating though, a little bit. Like you think that you have this skill and then maybe you don't. So how do you handle like that disappointment when a team member is inevitably going to get their feelings hurt in these types of situations?
It is a little disheartening, but if you ask more intentional questions about it, find out why do you feel like that's a strength of yours, and then here's what other people thought was a better fit for you because of X, Y, and Z. So you've got to ask intentional questions and find out more about why do you feel like you're really good at that skill, and are you opposed to maybe going in this direction instead, right? It's just about asking those questions and then actively listening to the answers and then asking more questions until you get to a place where it's a mutual agreement of, okay, yeah, maybe I am good at this and I didn't even realize it.
With those skills, by the way, you could probably be a podcaster, intentional listening and asking questions.
There you go.
You can have your own podcast, Lisa.
Yeah, I'll put that on my list of all the things I have to do this month.
Exactly. We talked a little bit about one of the things that someone could do is, prepare and rehearse, not practice, but rehearse. But sometimes the thing that just drove me batty, you're sitting in this meeting, there's all 20 of you in the office in the lobby, and the doctor asks a question or the office manager or whoever, and they want you to present like either a case study or they want you to role play something.
Yes.
And all of us introverts are just dying right now. Like we don't want that. But how can we overcome or at least endure that situation a little bit better?
You have to be inclusive and also very aware of people's limitations, right? Ask them in a meeting, what do you prefer in a meeting to happen? And what do we need to know about you so that we don't include you in something that you're uncomfortable with, right? You've got to ask that question because, like you said, an introvert is going to cringe if you say, okay, come on up and role model. So you ask for volunteers. The volunteers are going to be the extroverts. Mm-hmm. The introverts are still going to learn from it, but they don't necessarily have to be included in the activity.
Interesting. So you don't advocate, and I don't think this is necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. Like that's not necessarily, because I'm of the mind I would probably push that introvert to, sorry, buddy, but you got to do this thing too. Everyone else is doing it. This is a team. This is what we do.
No, I wouldn't in front of everyone. I would maybe coach them on the side with how to participate more or things that you could do that would make them feel more comfortable to volunteer to participate. So it would be a side conversation, but I wouldn't push them in front of the group because that's going to make them even more uncomfortable.
Oh, for sure. Speaking from experience, I mean, for sure. I always hated that. All right. So what are some of the key elements to making sure that the message is being heard? Because I think a lot of times like you're speaking, no one's really listening. So how can you really engage that audience better?
So first of all, you have to know your audience. What is it that they're interested in learning from you about the topic? Do your homework before you even step up in front of them so that they're automatically going to be interested because you're focusing. Like for me, I when I present to smaller groups, not a huge convention, but when I present to smaller groups or an individual practice, I send a pre-presentation survey so that I can formulate my presentation to what their needs are. And so if it's a, for example, I have one coming up on optimizing team meetings, and I just sent their survey yesterday. What kind of meetings do you have? Who facilitates them? How many of you use a template and what meetings? And so I've asked them very specific questions so I can take their information and make it personal. So that's one of the biggest things. The other thing is you want to break the patterns of expectations. When you get up in front of people, so many people walk up onto the stage and say, hey, how's everybody doing? Oh my gosh, I can't believe how hard it's raining. What a great convention. Are you guys having a good time? Right? Break those patterns of expectations, walk up, plant your feet, stand comfortably, pause for a minute. That's the pause. The power of the pause is huge because it made people go from looking at their phones to, what's happening? And then engage them with something emotional. Right, a personal story, a video, a shocking statistic, something that's going to grab their attention, but different than what they were expecting. Because when people get up on stage or in front of you, most people are looking down at their phones, waiting until the content starts.
Right. This can stay in the podcast, but it's just an interesting thing that you talk about, like that pause and how important and how strong that is. There was a comedian, nighttime host, and he would do a thing called an awkward pause where how they always have they're interviewing a celebrity and they're sitting on the couch and they're like, oh, whatever, and he's like, all right, well, how do you want to end this segment? Do you want to do this or awkward pause? He always had like a bunch of little fun games or something he could do. And they're like awkward pause, and all the actors like thinking that they're the best actor, they always do this awkward pause. And I'll send you a link by the way to this later on because it's going to kill you. And so they just stare at each other. And then maybe the host would be like,
oh my gosh.
And we're like, what are you doing? But they're in a pause. They can't say anything. And it goes on air. It goes from being funny to very uncomfortable to really funny again. So I appreciate a good pause in that.
Yeah, there is power in the pause for sure.
There is. I want to pivot, if it's okay with you, from kind of like this confidence discussion to more study clubs, because when we were talking about like, what do we want to talk about for the show? There is one study club that I know that is still in existence that was really, really good back in Washington State. Now in Florida, I haven't heard of like any really good study clubs. So are study clubs even a thing, first of all?
They are, but I think they've changed in their approach, or if they didn't, they're no longer around, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And so study clubs need to be, if they're going to maintain membership, they need to be very membership driven, or member driven, I guess I should say. You can't continue to do things the way you used to do them and expect the younger generations to attend. And so they've
explain that more. What was happening before that was successful, and then what changed?
So I think older generations, baby boomers, and maybe the older Gen X, they were very accustomed to traditional meetings, right? And so presentations and doing case presentations, and the structure of the meeting was the exact same every single time that you went to the meeting. You know, you might have had a different speaker, you might have had different presenters, but the structure of the meeting was very written in stone. And younger people need more interaction, more stimulation, more variety, more virtual, right? And a lot of the study clubs that didn't survive through COVID was because they didn't know how to entertain people virtually. And it really is entertaining them, right? It's a member-driven, educational type of meeting. And so you've got to vary the way that you're interacting with your members in order to have a very strong study club now. And so I do coach associations and study clubs, and every meeting should be different, right? And I actually work with groups to create a calendar for the year. And so I recommend you have 6 meetings, 4 to 7 meetings a year, whatever your study club can handle. But, you know, the first one should be surveying your members. It's a virtual meeting, and it's surveying your members. What do you want to hear about this year? What do you want to learn about? You should have a newsletter and a blog so people can stay in contact with you when you're not at your meeting, which that didn't happen before, right? Your next meeting would be, let's see, in February. I'm looking at my calendar that I created for one club, team meetings, right? Ask the expert panels, right? And get people involved in sharing what their strengths are and what they're doing in their practices that have really helped them grow. Different types of meetings that you should be having. Then do a newsletter the next month, newsletter and a post, you know, recap of what you talked about and something that's been going on, you know, maybe have a spotlight, member spotlight every single month that you do that blog. Next meeting, have case presentations so that your members get to show their expertise. And me, who is not showcasing, might be able to go to that meeting and go, oh my gosh, I need to learn more about that technique. And now I know who to go to. Right. And so you want to vary those and make them both virtual and in person, because some people just can't accommodate an in-person meeting all the time. Have a welcome, like a graduation welcome, and usually in like May or June, right after the students have graduated. If you have dental schools in your area, invite them for free. Allow people to bring a guest to meet the new grads so that they can start relationships with them, so that they are going to start building relationships to get referrals, right? So that they meet new people in their community. Let's see, what else do we have? Have CE events. Do like have me as a speaker come in and present a continuing education course on something that they mentioned in the beginning of the year, right? This is what we want to hear about this year at our All CE. Let's see, mastermind sessions. Do have a mastermind session for one of your meetings and just help each other, right? Here's the situation that I'm in, or here's a patient that I'm having a hard time figuring X out, right? Or this implant case came to me from another practitioner in a different state, and this is what's happening. How do I approach this? and it gives, again, your members opportunity to participate. The November, again, have a professional speaker come in and have a vendor come in or two vendors come in and teach you about new products that maybe your study club is really interested in learning about. And then, of course, at the end of the year, you got to have the holiday party, right? Plus one.
Of course.
And so really focus on varying those meetings so that you're enticing the younger generations to participate and learn, as well as the older generations who still want to have those in-person meetings as well.
Do you feel like this is mostly geared towards dentists? Because the big successful ones that I know of are really dentist driven. I don't really know of too many hygiene specific study clubs.
Hygiene, a lot of hygiene study clubs are under the radar, but they're out there. I know the study club that I used to work with in Washington State, they had specific areas where they had hygiene study clubs. What I encourage to get people to start doing is an all-team study club, not just a hygiene study club, but the hygienists, the assistants, and the office managers. Because when they learn together about the same topic, they're more likely to bring it back to the practice and implement it, instead of one person going and coming back and saying, hey, this is what I learned. What do you think? Mm-hmm. You've got security in numbers, right?
I feel like there was the one, I think we're talking about two different study clubs, just in case anyone's trying to like clue in and be like, oh, they're both talking about Washington State study clubs. I think these are two different ones. But the one that I know that was really successful was run by an oral surgeon, and they would have, with your content calendar, right, that you're talking about, they would have every like third meeting would be bring a specific type of team member.
Right.
That way they could still have, their secret doctor discussions, without their team members. And because sometimes they don't want to be vulnerable in front of their team members either. And I think that model was really, again, speaking of why they're probably still in existence, it was really strong.
And having an all team meeting, even if it's an all dental meeting, having one meeting a year, an all team meeting, is a fantastic idea, because so often, I've been a hygienist for 30 years, and I can tell you, I worked with the same periodontist's office and the same oral surgeons, and I had never met the people who I was talking on the phone with or sending x-rays to, or we'd never met in person.
Yeah.
And what a wonderful way to enhance that relationship and take it to the next level, because now you personally know each other, right? Exactly. You're going to go above and beyond because you have a face to that name or to that office.
Yeah.
So I definitely encourage that, at least one a year.
I think, I don't know how many dentists will be listening to this particular episode, but if you are a dentist and you are listening to it, I think the other thing is, by including your team, if you are not maybe like the strongest leader, if you're not the strongest communicator, if you're not the strongest whatever, you invite them to the one that they need, that your team needs help with specifically, or you ask the study club leader, like, hey, can we have a session on X, Y, or Z that my practice needs help on?
Yeah.
And then it's coming now from like the expert, right? It's like coming from someone else, and you don't feel like you're always having to like lecture them about stuff.
That's part of your planning, right? The strategic planning in the beginning of the year. Find out what your members are interested in and focus on that. It's like the pre-survey I do before the presentation. Send out a survey, find out what people want, instead of the board sitting in a closed room saying, okay, this is what we're going to do this year.
Right.
And you might miss the mark. You might hit it. You might get a bullseye, but you might miss the mark too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you're saying that these hygiene study clubs are under the radar. I don't imagine the Google machine would really tell us if I put in like Tampa Dental Hygiene Study Club. Like how do you get connected to some of these?
They're hard to find because they all go under different names. A lot of times they are an extension of a dental study club.
Okay.
And so if you know the study club that's in your area, you could ask, is there a hygiene or an all-team study club as an extension of this? But you're not going to find it just by typing in, what are all the hygiene study clubs in the U.S.? It's a tough one.
There's no comprehensive list of that one. I imagine they come and go. Yeah. So if someone was thinking about starting, if someone was thinking like if they wanted to start their own study club, I would imagine there are some kind of just like key elements that they have to have. Where would you suggest that they start? If I'm here in Tampa, don't know, there isn't one here, I want to get the hygienist together, like how would I start one?
I would say go to your referring offices first. Go to your tighter community, in other words, and see if there's an interest. Right? As a hygienist, I'm going to reach out to all the hygienists in the offices that we refer to. That's a perfect place to start because they already know you and they know the standard of care that you provide. And then, if you want to start it as a hygiene meeting and then expand into the dental assisting, or you could start them both at the same time because then you have more people to work towards setting up the meetings. You have more people to divide and conquer on the setup that you need to do.
Yeah.
Right. And so start there and you'll be surprised how quickly it'll grow. And as long as you provide valuable content to your members, you're going to continue to grow. But if it's not a member focused group, people are not going to take away from their family time.
True.
Or, from any of their free time if they don't feel like they're getting value from it.
I guess it's been too long. I don't even know. Like, what would the expectation if I was going to join a study club? What's the financial outlay for me as a member approximately?
Ooh, that's tough. Some study clubs, if they're doctor run, the team clubs are actually paid for by the doctor. Most of them that I know of, the higher end ones, are the doctor pays for the membership. And it's not a huge fee. It's like a $75 to $150 yearly fee. It's not big.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And then, to run the meetings, you look to vendors. You find vendors that want to support, that want to be in front of that group.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just thinking, like, I know my doctors when they joined the OMS one, like, oh my gosh, that's really expensive. Like, it was thousands of dollars. Like, I don't want to say that's like $5,000 a year or whatever. I'm like, if that's what it's going to be to, take to be a part of a hygiene study club, that probably is not feasible for me.
No, and no, it's not an astronomical fee by any means. I've never seen one that's been over $1,000.
Oh, that's good. All right. So we are kind of running a little bit short of time. I wanted to talk a little bit about your book a little bit. You also have a retreat. I want you to kind of tell everyone like kind of what you have for them on offer.
Okay. Well, thanks for asking. My book is called Iron Out Your Communications. It's right here. So excited. And it is for dental professionals, for teams, and for creating loyal patients. So you want to include or have your team members be engaged and loyal to the practice. And then also talking about communication skills that you can work with your patients to keep them loyal to your practice and referring to your practice as well. It's a quick read, but there's a lot of engagement activities. There's a lot of communication strategies that are very simple to implement to enable your team to really be connected personally to your practice, right? And to help your practice grow. Mm-hmm. So I am so excited about that. And I'm having my first time ever retreat. It's called CE in the Mountains in Park City, Utah, which is where I live. And it'll be February 23rd and 24th. We are going to have several different speakers. It'll all be communication focused, practice management focused. And it's a day and a half. So it'll be Friday all day and Saturday half day. On Friday night, we're going to be doing a horse-driven sleigh ride.
Oh, fun.
Up the mountain. And we'll have some other surprises as well. But I'm really looking forward to it. I'll have the webpage will be launched the beginning of June. And it's ceinthemountains.com. And so it's being built right now. So I don't have any information on that yet. I guess
by the time this airs, it'll be live by the time this airs, I bet.
Yes, it will, definitely. Yep. And so I'm very excited about that. It's an all-team meeting. So I would love if everyone on the team came to that presentation. It's really designed for all team. And you can extend your stay 3 days on either side of the room block, and they're going to honor the price for the hotel room block. And it's right in the heart of Park City. You can actually look at the hotel and see the ski slopes for Park City Mountain.
That's awesome. What a great location.
Yeah, I can't wait.
All right. So if someone wanted to reach out to you, we'll have links to this in the show notes, everyone. But if they want to reach out to you personally, how can they find you?
They can contact me on my website. There's a contact form, which is communicatewithinfluence.org. They can text me or call at 206-465-1637. I'm a Gen Xer, so I answer really quickly to text. Hint, hint. But I'm pretty good about getting back with people on email as well. So whatever way they're comfortable with, they choose.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for asking me. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.